Hey everybody, it's Patrick from Patrick and Friends Music Company, and today we're going to be active listening. We're going to be listening to the self-titled album Her by the artist Her. We're going to be listening to the first 3 tracks on this album. If you want more, check out our Patreon where we listen to full albums. However, for this video, you're not going to hear any music come through the actual video, and that's because of copyright issues. So what you have to do is actually pull up the music on your own, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, or whatever streaming service you use. Or you can download the album off iTunes or wherever you buy music. I'll include some links in the description so you can get there easily. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing my screen. So I'm going to be listening on Spotify. And so you can see what track I'm on and, when we're finished and when we start. Now, after each song, we're going to pause and we're going to talk about each track. So make sure you follow along. Like I said, we're going to be actively listening. And this just means listening on a deeper level. So really paying attention and analyzing what's going on compositionally and performance-wise. Now, if this is your first time doing this, what I suggest doing is just honing in on one specific thing, whether it's harmony, an instrument, melody, rhythm, whatever you want to just look at and really focus on, really just pay attention and try to analyze what's going on. Now, actively listening will help you really become a better musician and just help your overall understanding and appreciation for the music. So let's pull up our first track and let's get started. All right, so we're on the first track, Losing by Her. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. All right, all right. So I thought that was a great opening track. I thought the word that comes to mind is simplistic. I feel like there wasn't too much there wasn't too many just like walls of sound like like Coltrane. There wasn't just walls of sound. It was very simplistic at times, just bass singing and some little rhythm going on. And I also found it interesting how they sort of layered it to kind of go into the next section. So you notice they kind of had the bass and singing going on, and then they sort of added some sort of effect, some sort of uh, or instrument, if you want to call it that, just kind of making some syncopated rhythms. And they added another layer on top of that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. On top of it, I really like the way she rhythmically she sings. It's really not just, straightforward. It's not just like it's not basic. It has some syncopated rhythms to it. It has some little complexities to how she's singing that melody, which I always find really interesting. Uh on top of that, I felt like there was that sort of idea of building and then taking away. You sort of heard, we added and layered and layered and layered, and then kind of took it away to kind of contrast that, you know, simple sounding sort of almost like two instruments going on versus a couple different layers. So they never really got up to like a complete climax of just like multiple instruments going crazy. They kind of kept it sort of, almost mellow the whole time. And I think that makes it a good opening track. It's kind of like an introduction to what you should expect. Not too high, not too low. Kind of has its own vibe. Sometimes the first track on the albums are just packed with power and punch, and that's really good. And that sets you up for like a different type of album. But I'm sort of getting a good vibe of what this album's going to be like already. And lastly, they had that switch up sort of at the end, which I really think is interesting. A lot of people, in a lot of genres of music won't do that, right? They will just kind of, keep it the same throughout. And, you don't want to have that in every song, but I think it is good to have some songs where there's kind of like a sort of switch in feel, sort of switch in rhythm. Um, but you'll notice that, a lot of musicians do this. Even, I know Led Zeppelin does this. I know I've heard Pink Floyd do this, and I've heard a couple actually artists, especially modern artists, kind of just have a complete different feel. I think that the music cut out for a second, and then they, kind of had a complete feel change towards the end, which I think is really interesting, and it adds just an extra layer to the song, a little more time to let the song breathe. And then finally, I kind of liked the vibe of it almost sounded like there was a call and response in the vocals. Not saying that, there was two vocals calling and response at the same time, but it felt like, and it's probably how they recorded it, there during the verse and the chorus, they're almost like two different takes. So, they record the verse and then they separated it and record the chorus because it kind of, you almost heard it like snuck in and sort of like took over from the verse. I found that interesting. Maybe that is like a stylistic choice, and maybe it's something that actually deals with the lyrics. I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but maybe if I was paying a little more attention to that specifically, you'd sort of hear that maybe call and response that between the two verses, the verse and the chorus might actually be, talking about a lot what the song has to do about. All right, so that's what I kind of noticed. Hone in on what you kind of notice and what you can take away from that specific song. You can go on and on and on about harmony and specific things about the melody, but I think just keeping it pretty general for now is good. So let's go on to the next track. All right, so next track is called Avenue. All right, all right. So, I thought that this song built a very similar way and gave a similar vibe to the first song. Again, very simplistic. A lot of times, just bass singing and then some piano. I'm not sure if it was a loop or someone actually playing live. But again, I feel like it built the same way, kind of had that vibe, added a little bit of drums or, fake drums, so claps or some sort of rhythm going on. Um, the melody during the chorus da 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 kind of had that rhythmic motif. I noticed a lot of her singing style is very rhythmic. It's not like a although she's an amazing singer. So although she has that ability to more or less like belt, like just really, really belt it out. She keeps it a little more rhythmic. And I'm interested in, um, I think it has to be some influence to what music she likes and also, what vibe she's going for. I know I've heard her uh, rap before, so maybe some of that rhythmic sort of approach of rapping kind of uh, is influencing how she likes to rhythmically place her melodies, which is interesting. I think that's makes her a little bit unique to a lot of people, especially in like the pop R&B sort of world. Um, Again, I think I noticed this in the first song too. They kind of have that piano that's almost set far back. It's almost like it's in a big room all the way in the back, probably using some effects. And in this song, they almost had like a tape effect going on, like an old tape effect. Maybe I think over the piano, or maybe over the whole song. I'm actually not sure. Maybe it was recorded on tape. I actually don't know the answer to that. And it kind of added a nice vibe. It's a lot of times small things like that really help uh, a song. It's another layer to the song that maybe you may not deem as the essence of the song, but adding that little piano in the back adds a adds a vibe to the song, and putting that sort of tape, that old tape machine um, recorder on there, whatever that's effect or whatever, adds another vibe to the song. Uh, and again, I think coming from the first song, this makes a lot of sense. It's kind of a little more laid back. Again, no like in your face sort of climax. It's a catchy song. Um, but again, I think the same way as the other songs, I think they built very similar. They sort of used the same textures and same density of instruments. There really wasn't, again, not a big wall of sound. It's very separated, I found, as far as like you have that big bass going on, a little bit of piano in the background, and then the melody up here. So there's a lot of space, and I think that kind of adds to the sound of the album. And I think for anyone looking to compose, I think that's something you should really pay attention to. A lot of times it does have to do with instrumentation. A lot of times we kind of fill all the spaces in the frequency sort of realm. We have um, low, middle, high, and that is important, and it's good for getting a good sound space. However, having that sort of contrast adds a unique sound, and I think it's something that people take for granted that they shouldn't do that because it's not filling all the space. But sometimes even if your song has a big wall of sound, has a big filling in all those gaps of low, middle, and high, you should have some parts that have some space. It adds a sort of extra texture to your song. So I think it's something you can really take away from this specific song and our last song too. So let's pull up our third and last song. Third song is called Let Me In. Three, two, one. All right. So, um, a little more intensity for this song. A little more sort of coming out. I thought it was gonna be a more mellow vibe in the beginning, but then a little more sort of movement for this song opposed to our last song. So I'm actually curious going through the album if we keep going on and going on, it sort of builds up that intensity. Um, maybe not. I'm not really entirely sure because I haven't listened to this whole album beginning to end. Now, I think that track all about a lot about production. I mean, I liked the song, I liked the track. I thought it was good. Um, but vocal production specifically, the little things, whoever produced it, little things they were able to add in. A lot of layering. A lot of times there's just little moments where they doubled the vocals down an octave, or they added a high part, or they even doubled the vocals but added an effect on it. And they had some harmonies with sometimes some effects on the harmonies, sometimes not effects on the harmonies, and it kind of created this uh, balance of like sort of a natural vocal, and then sort of a affected vocal that sort of balance each other out, and it kind of added it again adds an extra element to your track. So they could have just laid the track down. I think it would have been fun. They laid the track down, just sang it front to back. No effects, maybe a little bit of effects, but no doubles, no upper harmonies. And I think most people maybe not bat an eye. I mean, the song would have sounded different, but most people are like, okay, it's a good song. But I think that level of production is what keeps it interesting. Adds little snippets of things, and for a lot of composers, no matter what the genre is, it's good to think big picture first, right? Like, let's get down this harmony, let's get down the melody. Two most important things. If those are good, you can have a really great song. Um, but when you go into the production realm, when you go into, okay, so I may have an amazing, amazing song, but how do I add elements to it? How do I add little things that is going to kind of put it over the edge, keep the interest going? You can kind of use production as a compositional tool. What I mean is, a lot of times composers they try to keep things interesting, right? Like, okay, what am I going to add to this chorus? What am I going to add to this chorus? How am I going to make this verse a little different? How am I going to switch up the harmony a little bit? Which is great, and that's how you should think about things. But if you think ahead about production, right? How can I add something else to this verse? How can I add something else to this chorus to kind of take it from maybe a stagnant song, an A B A, just beginning, bridge, and then end, and nothing really changing up, to something that adds a little bit, a little bit, a little bit each time. And I think they did a really, really good job with this. Um, Again, they play around with that sort of background instrument effect. I think at a point there was a guitar. I honestly couldn't even tell, it was so far in the back with some heavy reverb echo on. Um, Again, just a small element that they added that was it necessary? Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, it's arguable, but when they added it, it added a little element. Again, similar bass, so it's not a real bass in the album. Similar bass sort of structure and bass sound and feel sort of going on. Um, I do think something that was important is the sort of mimicking of the rhythm of the vocals. So, like in the beginning um, of the song, I think around I'll look at it later, but I think around the beginning they had a sort of there was the hi hat, the bass, whatever the synth bass, and the vocals had that similar sort of rhythm going on. It's almost like a forte piano, if you know what that is. It's like a da da da. So it's almost like a burst of sound, and then it wavers off. So it's like an accent almost that dies quickly, and they're kind of mimicking each other. And I think that was pretty interesting um, for this track. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was how they really shaped this tune. I thought was nice. They had a lot of things going on, but it didn't overwhelm the listener. They a lot of different elements, but I don't think at any time I was like, oh, there's too much. Like it's too much going on. They spaced it really well, and they didn't overload the listener with too much information at once. They kind of let the listener, being me in this case, sort of get used to the song, get the melody, get the harmony, and then they sort of added some stuff in. There's also some interesting things with this song, and actually I think the other songs with some chromatic harmony, especially in the using the bass line too to kind of set up that leading tone to get it to a more resolved chord with some chromatic harmony that sort of adds some tension, which I think was nice. But overall, I think these 3 tracks were great. I'm really interested in listening to the rest of the album, but for now, we'll keep it at that. So I hope to see you in the next video. This was a great time. I think you should sit down and listen to every album and every song like this. Really break it down to where, however you want to break it down, right? If you want to go into the specific harmony, if you want to go into the specific melody, that's great. But if you want to keep it a little more general, talk about a little more compositionally and big picture stuff, that's great too. So again, I hope to see you in the next video. But in the meantime, happy practicing.